Yeah. Yeah. Not here to make you happy, not here to make you sad. Your feelings are irrelevant when debates are to be had. The Belfast Bapcast, loud and clear, covering the topics others fear, Working overtime to bring you many stories, waking up today the same Labour and Tories. A stage it isn't our part to play, is bringing you knowledge in this way. No filter, no fuss, just tell unfiltered fact, much like the words on those Christian tracks.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Belfast Bapcast, and today's guest is someone who has stirred up more conversation in this country than most politicians ever could. Dr. Anne McCloskey, born and bred in Derry with the silent London for the other side, educated at Thornhill College and later University College Green or College Dublin, has spent her life serving people, not systems. She trained in paediatrics before coming home to work as a GP in the Shantallow area, looking after ordinary families for decades. A woman of principle, of compassion and of faith, and's never been one to stay quiet when she sees something wrong. When COVID hit, she came out of retirement to help on the front lines. But what made her different was she started asking the questions that others were afraid to about the lockdown mandates and what was really driving the government's response. And instead of being heard, she was hammered for it, suspended, smeared, dragged through the media, all for saying what she believed and standing by her oath to do no harm. Now, whether you agree with her or whether you don't, that kind of backbone has to be admired. And it's hard to come across these days. And she's paid the price for speaking truth to power. But she's still here standing, still vocal, still refusing to bow down to institutions that have lost the trust of the people. She's a mother, a doctor, a community woman, and someone who's turned adversity into purpose. And today, she's here to tell her story, not through the headlines or sound bites, but straight from herself. So, Dr. Anne McCloskey, welcome to the Belfast Bapcast.
Good morning, Mark. It's a great pleasure to be here. And thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, not a problem. So, straight into the meat of things. So, looking back now, 5 years on, both as a doctor and both as a citizen, what was the first sort of red flag to you that the response wasn't about health?
Yeah, like so many people, let's say I had looked at the whole science behind vaccinology, or tried to, around the time of Dr. Wakefield and that. And I'd lived through the SARS in 2009, the nonsense. We had a health centre that had no room for us because there was so much equipment and none of it was ever used. It was just a massive waste of money. And whenever at this time, don't forget, Mark, I had retired, but I got myself elected to Derry-born District Council along with the pro-life political party. I mean, I'd been a pro-life activist all of my life, right from school. But for me, you talked about me trained in paediatrics. For me, my paediatric year that I spent in the special care baby unit of the Royal Maternity Hospital, the paediatric intensive care unit, really copper fastened my absolute certainty that human life has dignity and worth long before birth. These wee scraps of premature babies.
It's the framing of it, though. If a woman has a miscarriage at 6 weeks, they say that she's lost the baby, but if she terminates it, it's a medical procedure. It's also it's so cold, but it's a human life,
without a doubt. But as I say, helping these wee people, and watching them in their struggle for life. Mainly, it has to be said, I mean, the outcomes were reasonably good for most, but they hated us because we stuck needles in them and they felt pain, and they had their own wee characters. Even, some of them were more placid than others. It was amazing. So as I say, I came from that background where I'd been politically active. So an all-island political party called Aintu started up, and I was kind of, I'd stood as an independent before. But I was sort of headhunted for that, and I was quite glad to be there. So I went into the council, but in the meantime, I had been looking at the science, allegedly, in massive quote marks, and the figures. I looked at right at the beginning at Johnny Anitas's figures. I looked at the Diamond Princess stats. I looked at the sort of the fact that the mortality rate, case fatality rate, was reckoned even that early on. I'm talking about February now, 2020. Was known to be a fraction of 1%. And then I looked at the mayhem that was inflicted upon us. The only people, do you remember those first heady days? The only people who got ill were politicians.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just told my family that I was doing a podcast in here, and there's somebody with some sort of a petition. Where was I? Yeah, I was talking about the mortality rate and that. And we saw a high profile. I think Boris Johnson was an early intensive care survivor.
Boris Johnson, and then we had a couple of members of the royal family as well.
Yeah, there were totally. And the same in the 26th county. I think Varadkar was a victim to this dread plague, but ordinary people were just going about their lives. And then the nonsense really started with the masks that we knew. I mean, if you look at the size of what we call a virus, and the pore size and even the most sophisticated of these masks, if you can breathe through them, the holes are too big, all of that. So I did write articles, and very early on, the local media were carrying my articles. I think I even got onto Radio Ulster a few times talking about, the lack of any rational science behind this. And then early on too, I was in touch with people like Dolores Cahill in Dublin, who was professor of immunology at University College Dublin. And she was sending me papers from 10 years previously, where looking at this, and even, don't forget, even at the beginning of 2020, they were talking about this new mRNA technology that was going to be, and even then, in the middle of the summer, I made a speech in Derry talking about what I was seeing in the hospitals and saying that it looked like as if these lockdowns were going to persist until we got vaccinated. And that the end game, even that early on, seemed to be universal vaccination. Now, I had no proof of that, but I was just saying, nothing else makes sense. So then I went back.
Early on, it felt like some form of drill. Like I knew from the get-go it was nonsense, and it just felt like we were being trained or conditioned into something, just to see how far they could push society. It was very, very strange times.
It's interesting. I have 3 siblings, and 3 of us are academic. My other brother's a professor of he's a physicist and a geophysicist, and the other fellow is an Irish language, and sort of Irish culture. And the youngest boy had profound dyslexia, and he'd been saying to me for a decade, Anne, you got to look at this stuff. You must understand that there's a plot to de-Christianize Europe, to depopulate, to reduce the world's population dramatically. And I was going, Mickey, how could they do that? That couldn't work. And he started showing me sent me the odd link, and I look at a bit of James Corbett and a bit of these other people, and sort of go, well, but if, like so many people, I suppose 9/11 was the sort of starter drug. And I suppose I'd been skeptical. The other thing was, you'll love this one, Mark, seeing how the workings of government, even at council level, played out. The standard of debate and scrutiny was, to me, a real eye-opener as well. It was phenomenal. So yeah, I went back then and started working in Western urgent care, and what I saw was not a respiratory pandemic, but the absolute abandonment of our people by their NHS. And God help them. They used to go out opposite Great James's Street, where the out of hours was, with their pots and pans on a Thursday. And I felt like shouting across to them, go in. It's not what you think. It was
embarrassing, wasn't it? It was so embarrassing.
Yeah. One of the first patients I saw was a child of about 14. And what happened was that the mother had rung her own doctor 3 or 4 times during the week and couldn't get help. And the symptoms were quite non-specific. She says he's just not himself. He's not well. So anyway, I she was put through to me, and I triaged the call. And I said, look, you sound like a very sensible woman. She says, I'm worried about him. And I said, if you're worried about a 14-year-old boy, you get him in here now. So that was okay. Put him in for an appointment. Immediately, I got a call from the Rottweiler manager upstairs saying, you can't bring children in here. It is verboten. And I said, excuse me, this health centre belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the people who work here. This is, it's a public facility. And I said, I'm the clinician. I'll bring whoever I want. Anyway, long story short, the young fella came in with a blood sugar of over 30, navy blue, collapsed, dehydrated, pre-diabetic coma, and had to be resuscitated and red lighted. And that was one. There were others where ill people, where children were denied care, but that was the one that child would have died, I think. If his care had been delayed for another couple of hours. And that I'm sure was not unique to here. Old people, you went out to do a house call. I went to everybody. I wasn't remotely scared. And you go into the house and the first thing they said is, doctor, he or she is not going into hospital. And the patient, sick people were saying, I don't want to die on my own. They knew when they went into a hospital, they wouldn't have their family around them. They were terrified. And at that time, I did not know about the protocols that were being, even though I think that first protocol had been published at that time, but I wasn't aware of it. And I was going up, but look, it'll only be a couple of days IV antibiotics. The urinary sepsis, say, quite common in the elderly. A couple of days IV antibiotics, you'd be right as rain, you'd be out. A bag of salt water, get rehydrated, you'd be grand. No, not going in. So they died at home, And the problem, the thing about out of hours, you don't often have follow-up in terms of, I didn't know what happened to those people, but their own GP then, who overtook their care the next day, would have known. But I've no doubt that, and we saw that massive death spike in April, and that was a death spike. The vast 2/3 of those were at home, and a third in hospital. And as I say, we know that the GNR don't resuscitate, and the midazolam and morphine, toxic, murder by medication, but there's no other word for it. Those protocols were written up and signed off by our chief medical officer, Professor Dr. Sir Michael McBride, and by the health minister, who at that time was Robin Swan, with the lovely apron. So it was a horrific time.
And there was so much theatre as well around that time of building these emergency hospitals when they weren't even using the hospitals that we had. Talks of emergency morgues whenever there was zero need for them. It was
nobody saw those in real life. Nobody that I knew was sick or knew anybody that was sick, or it just was a completely normal spring mortality of a few very, very old people.
And I think as well, it was really sort of the boomer generation and up were really hit by the fear mongering by the media, the constant death tolls and these fake videos coming out of Italy of people lying dead in the centre, but yet they're moving under the the sheets and stuff. It was scary times. And very early on, I seen you on. I think it was out in the street doing a public speech on it, and I couldn't believe that there was actually a doctor having the fortitude to stand up against it, to be honest, because it was clear. They tried, as you said previously, in SARS. They tried this previously in 2009, was that, or 2012 or
2009?
They tried 2009. They tried to roll it out as a mass pandemic, but it didn't play out.
But in those days, the doctors were just scratching their head, going, "What the hell's going on?" But there wasn't that much ruckus about it. But
so
you're
privately, privately, did any of your colleagues sort of silently agree with you, but didn't really want to?
No, I was ostracized.
Right.
It was interesting because I ended up working exactly what you're talking about, Mark. The entire outpatient department of Altnagalvin Area Hospital was closed and turned into what was called a GP COVID assessment centre. Now, I, as a, someone returned, I wasn't meant to get shifts there, but I managed to book one shift because the out of hour shift and the GP COVID assessment centre were for at the beginning on the same booking sheet. They're both run by the out of hour service. So there you had for a 4-hour shift, there were 3 doctors, 8 or 9 nurses, half a dozen porters, ancillary staff, secretaries, all the rest of it. So I booked one shift and there were 3 doctors there. The other 2 girls came equipped with Kindles and knitting and paperwork and
tap
the
dances and two.
Yeah. So in 4 hours, we saw 3 patients. Now that was a staff. I think I counted 19 at one stage. We saw 3 patients, none of whom had COVID. We had no testing in any case. We didn't know. And one had bought, a young fella who obviously was terrified, had bought a SATS monitor and had the batteries in wrong or something and thought his SATs were 20. I was saying, if you're, well, anyway, you know what I mean? And there was a man with heart failure who needed admitted, fair enough. And there was a woman who needed her asthma medication adjusted. That's my memory of the three clients we had in 4 hours. And yet, outside of the health centre, one of our rock docs, one of the media gurus, that day was saying it's mayhem in there. Now, that was a barefaced lie. And he knew it was a lie, So anyway, I was dropped off the rota. But you were talking about, being brave. Don't forget, Mark, I was retired. I had my career finished. I had my debts paid. I owned my house. I had my family reared. I had my pension got and spent. For the younger doctors, they're coming out. I'm not making excuses for them, but I kind of am. But for example, my colleagues, there's no one else in the north of Ireland that I know of that has spoken out. In the south,
I can't believe there's not one other person who has felt morally conflicted. Do you know what I mean? No matter what your tenure is, the damage that was inflicted on your fellow human there just through the mandates, never mind the false medical procedures that were carried out, is inhumane.
Well, what happened to me was meant to be a very clear signal to the rest of them. I've no doubt about that. And what the General Medical Council did to me is still an open case. They haven't been able to strike me off. I'm suspended. And I have 3 open police investigations. And it will go to the Attorney General in England, and it will go to the European Court if necessary. The General Medical Council are a criminal cartel who are working. They're a subsidiary of the government. They are a creature created by the Privy Council. The senior judiciary in the north of Ireland are Privy Councillors. The appeal court judges are all Privy Councillors. The whole thing is a stinking pit of corruption and hugely funded by the pharmaceutical industry and by the Talmudic bankers. So, it's that's all still live. They have the wrong cat by the tail. But I was down there recently in Dublin supporting a colleague of mine, Dr. Marcus de Bruin. Now, he's a completely different kettle of fish. He's a young family. He's in the middle of his career, hugely successful career as a GP. He also was a member of the Irish Medical Council, and he's likely to lose all of that. So as I say, I understand. What I said, there were doctors ringing me from some consultants from the hospitals in Belfast, ringing me and sort of feeding me information. I said, well, why don't you speak out? Oh, I can't. Consultants I'm talking about. And I said, well, hold on a second. If 3 or 4 consultants in the Royal Victoria Hospital and the Ulster Hospital and, spoke out, surely then tomorrow there'd be 40 and there'd be 100 GPs and, the thing would be over. And I do think that if we had managed to crack that, but, it didn't happen and it's disappointing, but it's not for me to judge.
I think it showed as well how alive and well hive mentality was, because there's people that I know that work within the medical profession who still to this day will get on when they're talking like they were heroes, like they were doing something heroic during that time. It's like you were literally being charlatans.
One of the primary sins of humanity is pride, and this is why the thing was so devilishly, and I use the word advisedly, devilishly clever, because the hardest thing for us to do is say, shit, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I made a complete mess of that, and I should have known better. That's not something, and
Especially,
I stand accused here. It's something that is exceptionally difficult for people to do, and I think that was factored into the equation. And can you imagine if you had taken
it was
what is
so
now?
well planned out.
Yeah. This has been in the making for decades. There's no doubt about that. And if you had taken the experimental genetic bioweapon, or worse, persuaded or given it to your children, how could you admit to yourself even that was incorrect? Do you know what I mean? So I do feel sorry for people, and I think that and this has divided families. It has wrecked marriages, it has split up homes.
It nearly ruined my relationship with a couple of members of my family, because I was so staunch about it. For me, it was something that was so evidently clear that it was a complete psychological operation. It just blew my mind how others weren't so clear. But then now looking back, I totally get it. The fed on the visceral desires of the human being, fear, and whenever humans are in fear, they'll look to wherever for safety, and it was daddy government.
There's so many people have written about this now. You've Matthias Desmet, talking about exactly those things you're talking about. These have been studied, and as I say, in the UK column, I'm sure many of our listeners will follow the UK column. They've been talking about the nudge unit and this applied psychology that's been coming from the Ministry of Defence. I mean, there's billions being spent to develop Tavistock, all of it, and that machinery has been in place for a very long time. So I mean, Mark, like you, I'm a Christian, and we have to forgive, and at the beginning I was angry and I was going to people, how could you be so stupid and blah blah blah. But now I just feel absolute compassion. There's no point. Anger is not going to get any of us anywhere.
That what you were describing there was pride coming from our side. Wanting the I was right sort of thing. I told you so. But really, why do you need that? Yeah. And obviously these people are going to be devastatedly embarrassed internally to the point of cognitive dissonance, where they can't admit it to themselves because of as you say, they maybe have to understand that they've given an experimental job to their kids or whatever the case may be. But
it's absolutely horrific. I used to play with methods. Sorry,
go ahead. I was just going to say, even the testing methods,
I divide my world into BC, before COVID. Also, that coincides with before computers as well. Your skill set has to be added on very quickly, to access information. Before that, I worked. We had 8 receptionists in the practice. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to do any of that research stuff. So all of that.
What was the internal pressure like from the medical bodies? I mean, was obviously you're starting to stand out and starting to call the bullshit here. Are you getting direct phone calls, threatening letters? What's their protocol? Or just
at the beginning, they were
trying to strike you off?
Yeah, there were Facebook groups. One was by a virology student, strangely enough, in Cork University, set up with the intent of getting me struck off. That was the reason for the group. And even some of my colleagues here in Derry were members of it, and shame on them. But I can't fix that. But no. It wasn't so much direct. It was it was channeled through the General Medical Council. The idea was to get me suspended, partly so that I couldn't see and tell anymore, because I was going to keep doing that. But also the General Medical Council. I mean, the accusation is they won't look at evidence. They won't disprove that anything I said was true, because it all was provably true. It was based on science. It was based on real world data. But what they say is that what brought the profession into disrepute. Now, I would argue the opposite is the case. The other thing is destroyed confidence in the medical profession and not followed public health guidelines. Now, again, whistleblowers are a protected species. In the NHS, it's its own documents. In the General Medical Council's own documents, this is a protected disclosure, keep it, and patient safety. But they twist that into no, public health guidelines are the only morality which you're allowed to apply. So it's and the other thing obviously is the vaccines are the Lord of all. The vaccines as well, and I mean the churches, and I'm sure
Dr. Robert Malone.
Sorry,
Dr. Robert Malone was the inventor of the mRNA. Yeah, wasn't it? He speaks out even against the
he does. Yeah, well, I mean it's beyond my pay grade to comment on some of these other people, but I know that he equivocates, and says that these mRNA cancer vaccines might be okay. All of this technology, for me, it's very clear, Mark. All of this technology is designed and produced using aborted fetal cells. All of it. To me, that's just open and close. And shame on our Pope Francis. I pray for him, but to me, Leo, I don't think has made any pronouncement on mRNA technology, but Francis said that that it didn't matter that there were fetal cells in these vaccines because it was a long time ago. That is absolutely in contravention to the 2,000-year-old magisterium of the Catholic Church and the 2,000-year history of and since the 1500s when Protestantism came in, everything that you crowd have believed as well. This is nonsense.
Well, that's what I was going to say at the start. You were saying about being very pro-life. It used to be like a given that every Catholic you would meet was pro-life. What's changed there?
They're not Catholics. It's just that simple. If they're not pro-life, they're not Catholics. Yeah. They might go to mass. They might fawn at the altar. They might do whatever. If they don't oppose abortion and euthanasia, then they are not members of the Catholic Church. End of story. It's just that simple.
Well said.
It's not complicated. And if you go to confession, for example, we have this confession. If you go to confession and you say to the priest, well, I was putting up posters to promote abortion, you should just say, you can't do that. And if you can, get out. Yeah. Get out. You shouldn't be here. So it's, for me, it's
not
open
everybody's
close.
morally grounded though, are they?
Well, these are the teachings. Again, our schools are failing to deliver this properly. All of this, Mark, is a satanic agenda. They want to depopulate 100%. Christian Europe. They want to change. The whole woke thing is an absolute, a fallacious philosophy. There's a fella called, you may have heard of him, James Lindsay, who podcasts widely in this. He's very, very good. This is part of the new world order, and places like Ireland, North and South, and the European countries, who have their very strong sense of nationhood and their strong sense of Christian morality, even though it may not be apparent in the way that their society functions, but it's still there as an undercurrent. That has to go, and that this is part of that. The closing of the churches while the off licenses stayed open should teach you everything you need to know. Yeah,
it's been present and it's been ongoing for many, many years, and we're the populace are guilty for allowing it to happen. We're the ones that have allowed, the abortion laws to pass and etc. Like that. To me, that's whenever this country was handed over completely to Satan. Because we were one of the last bastions of the West against abortion, and then that all went in one fell swoop.
Yeah. The SDLP, who were supposedly used to be the sort of Catholic nationalist party, have completely flipped. And in 2019, you'll be very aware of the story. With Sinn Féin and them went to lobby in Westminster when Stormont was collapsed, lobbied in Westminster for the extension of the Abortion Act to the north of Ireland. And we were up outside Stormont. There was hundreds of us that day. You may very well have been there yourself, begging the SDLP. All they had to do was vote against it, because that would have meant there wasn't cross-party
coherence on it.
coherence, and they walked out of the place. We were protesting. No, they needed to stay in there and vote, and they knew damn well what they were doing. So shame on them. They were to have the conference last Saturday, and we'd arranged for a big, just a protest outside, or just a reminder to the people of Ireland what they did. But thanks to the storm, they called off the conference. But we'll get them again. These people need reminded everywhere they go. Everywhere they go.
They don't stand up to questioning. I had Paula Bradshaw on from the Alliance Party and started questioning her about the NC1 adjustment to the abortion bill, how a woman can abort her child right up to term without any prosecution under law. Yeah. And she kept trying to straw man my argument, and I just kept bringing her back to, no, I'm talking about the NC1 adjustment, and she hung up.
They know damn fine well what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, they're the ones going to have to deal with it on Judgment Day, so fair play to them. But moving back
our politicians, of course, they're sock puppets. I mean, all of the political parties are absolutely controlled by the banking and corporate technocracy. They're completely.
I like the way you also dropped in.
No difference. Look at the difference in policy between Tories and Labour. Nothing.
Yeah,
look between
I like the way you casually dropped in the Talmudic banker statement there as well. Yeah. Not many know about that book.
Well, there are plenty of books, and you can stick a few of them in the show notes. Mark, this is the basis of it all, and again, it goes right back to biblical times. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Curse of Canaan by a man called Eustace Mullins. It's well worth it.
Yeah, Eustace Mullins was a very, very intelligent guy. So Northern Ireland has a long history of government overreach. So under the banner of safety, did you see that echo through COVID? Obviously, with Robin Swan as well. They really sort of what I mean is they sort of relished in this authority.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, without a doubt. These people have loyalties which are different to you and I. We are loyal to country, to family, to faith, to fatherland. These people are loyal to a regime which goes right back to the original schism in heaven. It goes right back to the Bible. Yeah, every time.
The sad thing is, even just saying those couple of sentences to the wider public makes us look insane, but unfortunately we're the ones that are awake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, insane doesn't mean what it used to mean.
That far removed from our Christian undercurrents that even having a discussion like that now makes two people look mental in the eyes of the masses, when it's clear that we're now living more so than ever in a battle of good and evil.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the picture of all the wee Germans giving the Nazi salute to Hitler and the boy with his arms folded.
Yeah.
And the truth will come out about all this. I have absolutely no doubt about it. It's just a matter of time.
100%.
The truth's already there for anybody who cares to look for it. Yeah.
How much was faith like an anchor for you during this time?
I'm in many ways grateful for COVID. It's a really bizarre thing to say. In many ways, I'm grateful for it because it actually made me understand what's important and what's not. And, without a doubt, we can't do this on our own. There's no doubt the forces that are ranged against the humanity at the moment are not of this world. No. And, abortion in that, for example, is part of it. It's a blood sacrifice to Moloch. I've no doubt about it.
Mammoth and Moloch, yeah.
And here in Derry, we're coming up to this big Halloween bonanza. And Halloween, as you know, is All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. It's a very ancient pagan Christian feast. And now this whole meeting of the two worlds has come up, and Derry at the it needs exercised after it. The last few years we've had women dressed up as witches and proclaiming to be witches, promoting abortion as part of the festivity for All Saints and All Souls. It's quite incredible. So yeah, It's just more out in the open than it used to be. These rituals, I mean, go back to the dawn of time, child sacrifice and pagan worship and all of that. But
well, with the faith side of things, obviously a lot of that would entail you do read your Bible, yes.
Yeah.
And you were saying about Pope Francis, so he was supposed to be Christ's representation on earth. How do you reconcile that? How's he Christ's representation on earth whenever he's doing ecumenical faith gatherings and and abortions, saying that he would
and pagan rituals with the Pachamama?
Yeah,
pagan rituals, virtually
portals.
pagan rituals. And I see Leo's that he's blessing blocks of ice and stuff like that now. The Catholic Church and the Vatican in particular is deeply, deeply infiltrated. And again, the evidence is clearly there. You look at Bella Dodds, look at Taylor Marshall's written a book on it. Dr. Taylor Marshall is an American theologian. It's a cesspit. The Vatican is it's dreadful, but still we Catholics say this is the church that Christ founded on earth. He said to Peter, "You're Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." And we've had bad popes before. We've had 2 or 3 popes at a time before. We've had homosexual popes. We've had a lot of saints as well. And don't forget, Pius X warned, Pius X, I think it was Leo XIII, warned clearly against this modernism which crept in, the smoke of Satan. I think Pope Paul VI, beg your pardon.
I think also for many years they tried to hide the Bible under Latin, and keep it away from the people, and not sort of allow the people to have the personal relationship with the Bible and with Christ.
Latin was the language of the church, okay? And don't forget, I mean, the Sola Scriptura doesn't work because don't forget there was no printing press until a couple of 100 years ago. So that people look at the cathedrals of Europe and say, why these ornate paintings, why these statues? Because people couldn't read. They only had the word of mouth and the preachings of the magisterium. There weren't any Bibles, and as you say, you rightly say, the translations only became available, and it was it the 1600s. That there were vernacular translations of the Bible. The Bible was a Latin tome, and nobody could read it except the people who were trained in it, the monks, and the
man has stood the test of time. People say what they want about the Bible, but it's the only book that's still standing and still relevant and still predicting and still having prophecy unfold from it. It's
without a doubt. And the Bible that you read is essentially the same as the Bible that I read. I read a Douay Rheims, which is from the Vulgate Latin translation, but they all come from the same sources. It was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, I believe, and then translated to Latin, and up until the 1500s, then, and you had rewritings of it by various, and nearly every sort of church now has its own version. But
and a lot of the things that have went on in this country since COVID have allowed Protestant Catholics to take a wee step back and realise there's not a great deal of difference, and we have a lot of common enemies and a lot of common goals. Without
a doubt, it's worse than that, Mark. If you look again at, there's a really wonderful book, and I again recommend it. You just need to read the chapter in Ireland, The Secret Origins of the First World War. This was, again, the Rhodes-Milner Group requiring war in Germany for their commercial ends, and they knew that the war was likely to start in Europe, but they needed to be sure. So they sectarianized Ireland. The same arms dealer in Hamburg armed the UVF as armed Redmond's volunteers, armed the then IRA. Was it the Irish Republican Brotherhood, or even before
Irish Volunteer Force, I think, or something.
IVF, you're absolutely right, the Irish Volunteer Force. So the same arms dealer, and don't forget the ports of England and Scotland were bristling, ready for war, and yet they were able to sail these arms into Larne and into Dublin, into Howth and Dublin, under the watchful eyes of the most mighty empire on the face of the planet. The whole thing was a
That's
psyop.
always said about the troubles in Ireland / Northern Ireland. It's the best sort of war the British have ever fought amongst themselves.
And the longest one, absolutely. And the border is a myth. The border does not exist. There is no Republic of Ireland. That's been proven in the Supreme Court in America when De Valera went to cash his war bonds. There is no republic. There is no border. The southern gold, the southern states' gold is held in the Bank of England in the City of London Corporation. Their law courts are still King's Inns, so they have no fiscal or judicial autonomy whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we have a strong suspicion that the taxes in the 26 counties likewise go through the consolidated fund and then are dispersed back. Now, that's a hard one to follow because it's a complicated trail, but people who know a lot more about this than me tell me that it's absolutely true. So the whole thing is to keep us divided. The whole gay, straight, black, white, trans, migrant, local, all of that is to keep us distracted, fighting among ourselves. Look over here. Don't look at what we're doing while they implement their global technocracy and digital ID.
And an amazing job they're doing. And even at the junctures of, like, say, independent media, inverted commas, you've your gatekeepers there. I mean,
totally.
Like, personally, I think like the likes of a Russell Brand or an Alex Jones, they're just there to be the Pied Pipers and say sort of enough to make you think they're telling the truth, but that's not even scratching the surface, And it keeps you.
And I would allege that the whole reform thing. Where were reform during COVID? Where were they whenever they were injecting pregnant women and children? All of that too is
paid for by the Talmudic bankers too. So I mean,
no doubt, yeah.
He's no better.
Yeah. And Tommy Robinson, Tommy 10 names.
Stephen Lennon, he is a Zionist as it comes. I mean, he's bought and paid for it. His what do you call it? Unite the Kingdom merchandise made in Bangladesh.
Oh Lord, we've work to do.
You know what I mean? Like, but people are not prepared to do the work for themselves. And it's like, it's okay having this knowledge and being able to see things, because then once you have it, you can't unsee it. But it's getting people to a point of even having the interest to want to know what's going on. People are just sort of happy getting their wee dopamine hits and going throughout life and never really challenging things too much. And
I feel so sorry for our young people because they have been trained not to think. They're educated. I mean, at school, we had a debating society that was one of the teachers gave up her time voluntarily. We travelled all over Ireland. We won the Londonderry Chamber of Commerce Debating Society, and we won the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce Debating Society one year. It was, but it made you think, formulate an argument, do your research. And I was always put in the team I disagreed with, the motion, but I disagreed with the motion, and it really helped, those sorts of things.
I think very much.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
In this country.
Sorry, I missed that, Mark. I'm talking too much. I should shut up and listen, shouldn't I?
No, 100%. And I think in this country, no, I was going to say, I think in any country where like a certain populace has been oppressed for years, they really do seek out education. Like Catholic schools, I would say, were far superior. In the pursuit of education than what Protestant schools were. Because
interestingly, we're looking at a lot of the
Catholic
senior
system. The only way out of that is education.
Yeah, I mean the Catholic Grammar School here produced in 1 year. I think it was Seamus Heaney, John Hume, who else? There's Eamon McCann, pile of writers and real intellectuals. But interestingly, more recently, the Catholic Grammar Schools have produced a lot of the leaders of the very nefarious program that we're seeing rolled out. So that it's a complicated one. Most of the senior judiciary now, the Director of Public Prosecutions, that role was set up in 1972. What they used to do, the senior one always went to a Protestant, and then the Catholic got the deputy. So the first deputy director of public prosecutions was a man called McCloskey, no relation. Spoiler alert. But you know what I mean? They were always there, ready to do the work. The schools maybe train them that this, you know, that I don't know. Maybe I need to revisit this train of thought. But you know what I mean? You know,
No,
they should
I
have been
think it
there
was
to
just,
protect. They should have known their history better.
yeah, and a more engaged, but definitely he's had I think a more engaged teacher base, should we say? Like the from a lot of my Catholic friends, they all have stories of like very standout teachers who really
Yeah.
took their time out to go that extra mile. Whereas I don't know, it's like the old premise.
I think the teacher training colleges have sorted that out in the last decade or so, from what I'm hearing. But again, I don't know.
Yeah, they're all sort of drilling out the same uniform.
Yeah, and you look at the entire subversion of what was, you know, the Republican network here across the north would have been, generally speaking, community-based, self-funded, cooperative, a lot of voluntarism, you know, a lot of that. Now, and this is leaving the armed struggle, in inverted commas, out of it. And with the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, that was completely taken over by European money. So you had groups that were working collaboratively together for the enrichment of their communities, fighting over funds, and you know, look, it turned into just a patch war, and that again is the old divide and control thing. You know, it's been very painful to watch. Again, a great book written about it called The New Politics of Sinn Féin from Liverpool University by a man called Kevin Bean. Is well worth a look for anybody who's interested in this stuff, you know. I mean, the European project, again, is part of the globalization, you know.
Yeah,
you know,
Sinn Féin have really shown their true colours in regards to their actual love for Ireland.
None,
you know what I mean?
None. Their first loyalty is, again, to their funders. It's strange that they just happened to stumbled across very large numbers of millions of pounds in recent years. It was a caravan somewhere, wasn't there? And then there was a bank heist and all of that. And then the message changed from then on. So, yeah. We used to say that, you know, loyal not to the crown, but to the half crown. But Sinn Féin have no loyalty.
Money talks, unfortunately. So
the other wonderful thing about Sinn Féin is this is interesting. They now run the Department of Finance and also the Department of the Economy in Stormont. Okay. Both of those are headed up by Sinn Féin ministers. John O'Dowd, I think, is finance, and what do you call her? Archibald, I think, is the economy. So Monday to Friday, Sinn Féin are collecting taxes, rates, fines, all the income from the people of the North in the Department of Finance, and sending them to the Consolidated Fund in the City of London, from where they are dispersed to fund the British Ministry of Defence, including MI5, MI6, the British Army, 77th Brigade, you know, Signals Brigade, all these people who are then sending expertise and material to Gaza to promulgate a Holocaust. So this happens Monday to Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, Sinn Féin, all right, making speeches at rallies talking about genocide. It is absolutely disgraceful. And likewise, in the Department of Economy, they are giving Invest NI funds to people who are making armaments which are going to Palestine to kill women and children. And then at the weekend, they're out protesting. Like, seriously.
What's more disgraceful on the other side is you don't even get the pretense of protesting it. They're just pro-Sam.
Yeah,
you know, there's not even.
Well, again, that goes back very deeply, you know, and again, it's that sort of dispensationalist Christianity, and you know, it needs sorted out.
If they read their Bibles, they would find out that you know, the covenant has been broken. They are no longer God's chosen people, and the ones that are currently there are Ashkenazi Jews, and they're not actually of any genetic tie or Semitic tie to the land, but.
This was the state of Israel. Arguably, the First World War was fought at the cost of tens of millions of lives in order to set up an outpost for the bankers and the industrialists in the Middle East. You know, obviously it's what do they call it? Routes and resources. Yeah. So shipping lanes, you know, cross places where canals are, countries, and also oil and, natural
There's
resources.
all these things too are mass human sacrifice as well.
Yes,
All these
yes.
wars have been mass human sacrifice. Have been absolutely horrible. Fought under the guise of Queen and country or whatever the nonsense that you buy into is, but you're just being slaughtered.
Well, as I say, going back again to the sectarianisation of Ireland, what happened was when they didn't need a civil war in Ireland to get the war on the continent, they said to the two lads, the UVF and the Irish Volunteer Force, "Asher lads, why be fighting? Go you and fight for us, and we'll sort it out when you come home." And they were ploughed into the muck of Flanders and Ypres and these other places, side by side.
Yeah.
They fought and died. And and this to me, is it the 15th of August is the Apprentice Boys' Day, and there's a lot of these bands memorizing the psalm and these wonderful battles. A lot of the bands. I was down looking at them, and there's tens of thousands of the most lovely people with their children, their grandchildren, babes in arms, out clapping like sea lions who are waiting for fish, for the empire. And you're just going, no, these people do not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, and it's even whenever like the Queen and the King and all the rest, like it's proven that this family, at the very, very least, endorse pedophiles, if not rampant ones themselves. So how can you be out waving a flag for that? It's
well, Lord Louis Mountbatten's story, I think, would tell a lot.
He was MI5. He was taken out by. That was not the IRA.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, but he did. It's phenomenal. The
rampant pedophile, and he was becoming a danger to the establishment. Apparently, from the sources that I've read, and he was taken out.
He's the current incumbent's uncle, right? Yeah.
Well, here
Charles
we certainly
III
covered some bases. Yeah, he was. He raised Charles.
Yeah, I'm aware of that too. Yeah, well, I mean, for the children, I mean, God help them, and where do you start? Like, how do you fix this? And as I say, going back to what we were talking about, Mark, there's one way, and that is on your knees.
Yeah, and there's no.
You can do the things we're doing. Obviously, I'm not tired or bored, and neither are you. So.
No, these people as well, though, that like they believe they come from like divine bloodlines, etc. There's no healing that, they're sort of damned. They believe they come from bloodlines of Nephilim and other such things. It's
and why we'll never see the Epstein files is because every politician from every party in America, and probably a fair few from this end of the pond as well, are in them. Do you know what I mean?
It's the same as the Concora cover up. They didn't want to bring out that the head of the Sinn Féin and the head of the British government were in there doing.
And that MI5 were all over it for years. MI5 were running that operation.
You were there, 100%, and it was being used as a honeypot operation. Absolutely disgusting. It was being used to compromise foreign dignitaries, but even using the word dignitaries doesn't seem right because that's far from what they are
in their world.
Yeah, but look, finally, do you believe Ireland as a whole is capable of rebuilding public trust in medical establishment, or is that goose cooked?
I don't even know if I think that would be a good thing. That's how bad it is. I think this is going to need a written branch reform of, outside of government. I think it's going to be rough. I think we're in for a hell of a rough ride over the next 30 years. I'm an old one, so I probably won't be here enough to see it. I have children and grandchildren. Everything I do is for them and for your children and grandchildren and for, you know what I mean? It's not about our generation.
Circumstances that we're being in at the moment with the anti-immigration and like the sort of boiling pot that feels like we're living in, do you not kind of feel that we're being led into that as well. Like those that are,
this is part of the same agenda to divide us. They want us
divide and conquer.
They want us hating people whose countries they have destroyed. Why would anybody from Afghanistan or Libya or, even Palestine want to come here? Because if they could live in peace and prosperity at home with control of their own natural resources, and, these countries are not poor places. They're oil rich. They're absolutely resource rich. Their countries are being plundered and pillaged in the same way as ours was, and they're being forced across Europe to make us regard them as the enemy. I wrote a Substack about this. I just published it yesterday, so I'll direct your listeners to go and have a look at that. On exactly
if you could send me through like a list of links that you would like me to put in the description, I'll get that all in. But I think people need to look past what you would say, like the symptoms, and look at what's causing the problems. It's not the immigrants. It's like the Open Society Foundation, etc., who's funding these things that we need to be looking into, not the people that are being brought over.
And all roads lead to Jerusalem, unfortunately.
And Rome. And Rome.
And Rome, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There needs to be a good redding out of both.
Yeah. And I mean, the Reformed Church is all but dead, so I can't stand here in any sort of precipice, because it's a joke. There's about 300,000 denominations. They don't know whether they're coming or going. So I think we just need to stick to the Bible and leave these institutions to themselves.
Well, we'll have to disagree on that. As I say, Rome is the head of my. I'm going to go to Rome next week, but at the moment it's captured totally. But I have great hope, because, as I say, we've had Our Lady of Fatima, and as I say, the Bible itself says that the gates of hell are wide open at the moment. So it's up to us to close them, and the only way we can do it is through the as I say, in my case, my faith tells me the only way I can do it is from within, and we need to win it back.
100%.
So that's. But again, I have during the whole COVID era, I collaborated closely with people who I would have been diametrically opposed to in politics and in religion. Whatever that means. For these are the salt of the earth, and that's what they fear most, is us getting together and understanding how we have been monumentally screwed over for centuries, and
100%,
that's the solution. So
well, it has been
big Billy pleasure. And myself used to talk together, and we used to always end the speeches with "No surrender, Chucky Arla," which are the big unionists. So
but
that to me
we do need to come together.
We do
need to come together like that, and it's been an absolute pleasure having a really nice discussion with you, and hopefully it shows people as well. Like, there's points there that we didn't agree on, but at no point did we feel the need to raise voices, or it's okay not to agree. Is the point, and we have more things in common with our fellow man than we do different, and. So no, it was a great pleasure. I enjoyed it, and thanks so much for inviting me on. Not a problem, and hopefully I'll get to speak to you again in the future, and best of luck with your ongoing nonsense with the medical council, and hopefully that gets resolved for you.
Yeah, as I say, it's not about winning, it's about exposing them. Nothing else matters. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Thanks a million.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And
not a bother.
Everybody, if you could like, share, and subscribe, and I will I'll link everything in your description.
Yeah. Not here to make you happy, not here to make you sad. Your feelings are irrelevant when debates are to be had. The Belfast Bapcast, loud and clear, covering the topics others fear, Working overtime to bring you many stories, waking up today the same Labour and Tories. A stage, it isn't our part to play, is bringing you knowledge in this way. No filter, no fuss, just tell unfiltered fact, much like the words on those Christian tracks.